This is Hofstra's Campus Conversations, the official podcast of Hofstra University's leadership team, focusing on issues of importance to Hofstra and higher education. Now welcome today's host, Hofstra President Susan Poser.
Hello, thank you, and welcome to the first episode of Hofstra University's Campus Conversations. This podcast is intended to provide information, insights, and lively discussion about the Hofstra community and the world of higher education in general. You will have different hosts from the senior leadership team, and you will have many different guests sharing their areas of expertise from both on and off campus. With that, let me introduce my guest today, Provost and Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs, Charlie Riordan. Welcome, Charlie.
Thank you, Susan. I'm excited to be part of this kickoff and really look forward to what the first of hopefully many engaging and informative conversations, both about Hofstra and about higher education more broadly.
So, Charlie, you're technically my guest, but you are often going to be the host of this podcast. So today, let's just say we're sharing the microphone and having one of our many, many nice conversations.
Sounds good.
So before we get started, can you tell our listeners a little bit about your background and how long you've been at Hofstra? And also, feel free to explain what a provost is. I'm not sure everybody knows.
Most people don't know what a provost is, so thanks for that. And as you've told me, you've been a provost, so you know what it is. But briefly, it's the chief academic officer of the university responsible for building, sustaining, and ensuring excellence and impact in all of the academic programs. I want to add, though, that our institutions really are in the business of people. So as you know well, academic leadership is really about building teams and hiring fantastic deans, chairs, and most importantly, faculty members.
Well, you've done a lot of that in the past couple of years.
As have you, and it's been all with your support. So we're really excited about our ability to put these people in place so we can build distinctive academic programs that are going to attract, retain, and graduate outstanding students, as well as our faculty who are certainly innovative educators, scholars, and artists. So that's a little bit about being a provost. I've been at Hofstra, as you know well, for 2.5 years, since July of 2022. And then prior to joining Hofstra, I spent 25 years at the University of Delaware on the faculty. My role was a chemistry professor with a variety of administrative roles. Had a lot of fun running a chemistry lab for most of that time, full of doctoral students, undergraduates, and postdocs. Taught general chemistry, first-year seminar for undeclared students and even advanced graduate classes there. And then during my last 10 years at the University of Delaware, it was a lot of fun serving as the Vice President for Research, Scholarship, and Innovation. And in that role, I had responsibility for administratively leading the research enterprise and helping to grow university's economic impact.
And while we're on the topic of research, this is something that you have really been promoting here at Hofstra to increase research productivity and opportunity for our faculty. Isn't that right?
Exactly. The fun part of the job. Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, I have to say, though, you did undersell your background in chemistry. I believe you're also an internationally known inorganic chemist with research supported by the National Science Foundation and the National Institutes of Health. Very difficult grants to get. You also have an impressive array of awards and honors, too numerous to mention here. But maybe we'll do our own podcast on that in the future.
Oh, let's try to keep these podcasts a lot more interesting than that, Susan. Let's take this opportunity, though, to hear a little bit about your background.
I've been at Hofstra now. This is my 4th year as president. I came exactly a year before you did, in the summer of 2021. Before that, I spent about 5.5 years at the University of Illinois, Chicago as the provost. And then before that, I was at the University of Nebraska for over 20 years, where I started as a faculty member, spent 3 years in the chancellor's office as the chancellor's chief of staff, and then went back to the law school, where I was a faculty member, to be the dean for about 6 years. But I grew up on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, so spending 20 years in Nebraska was a experience that I never expected, but it was really terrific. And I have 2 daughters, both of whom think of themselves as Nebraskans, even though they're no longer there. So let's get on with our main topic. For this very special first episode, we're going to be talking about Hofstra 100, which is what we call the new strategic plan that will take our university to its centennial anniversary in 2035. I announced this plan just this past September at the State of the University, but of course we had been working on it for a very long time.
So, Susan, to get us started, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about why you think we need a strategic plan?
Part of the reason, or I would say really the main reason that I came to Hofstra was because during the search process, what I saw at Hofstra was a place that had so much opportunity. Because we are a relatively small university, we have about 10,000 students, around 6,000 undergraduates and 4,000 graduate and professional schools. We have pretty much everything you could want or have at a university. So everything from the arts and sciences and the humanities to communication, to business, to engineering, to a huge array of undergraduate and graduate health sciences. We have a law school, a medical school, graduate programs in engineering and business and communication, and so on and so forth. I felt that we needed to leverage more than we already were, and we were doing a lot, all of this opportunity at a small school where we could really mix things up and we would be able to do really interesting things with all of these different academic programs. In addition, the strategic plan that was operating at the time was technically expiring, and so we would need one anyway. And I wanted to really find out from the campus what it is that they, and by they I really mean mostly the faculty, were interested in doing as we move towards the future. So we needed a roadmap and something that would give us goals and ways of getting there that really leveraged all of the wonderful academic programs on this campus. So we built this plan. Maybe, Charlie, you can talk a little bit about the different elements. What is the focus of this plan?
Sure, happy to do that. So as our listeners should know, at this point, there are 4 main goals within the strategic plan. The first is interdisciplinarity and new academic programs. Second is community engagement. Third is student success, and fourth is organizational agility. And all of those goals intersect with one another and certainly reinforce one another. And I think what's important is those goals lean into areas that Hofstra has already built clear strengths, and we can further strengthen and develop. Other key parts of the strategic plan, just to inform our listeners, are we established a new mission statement, which really sets the tone for all of these goals. What I like particularly about the mission statement is it's succinct and aspirational and uses active verbs such as cultivating and empowering, and it really centers the student in all that we do. We also developed new core values, 5 of them: belonging, community, creativity, discovery, and integrity. And I think together the mission statement and the core values really serve as a framework, or a North Star, if you will, if you'd like to answer the questions of what, how, and why are we going to do what we're going to do at Hofstra over the next decade.
This is a whole lot of change that we brought here, right? At least changed goals. Quite an effort to put it together. And I do think it fits our culture very well and really, I think as you're saying, articulates a lot of what is already true here, particularly the core values. One part of the mission statement that I really like is it has a placemaking aspect to it, and it says that we are, I think the words are, at the nexus of coastal, suburban, and urban environments. That's really important because that's another way of talking about opportunity.
Right, and distinctiveness.
And distinctiveness. I'm not sure there are that many schools that can really say that. But there were a lot of people involved in working on this, right?
Absolutely. So why don't we take that opportunity to think about the process? Because in strategic planning, particularly at universities, the process is as important, I would argue, as the product. So Susan, why don't you tell us about that process, which really started as soon as you arrived in 2021?
Yeah, so I was really very eager to get going on this, but I also knew, as you're mentioning, Charlie, about process, that we had to have the buy-in of the whole campus. And the only way to get that is to ask people their opinions and find out what the campus really wanted and what the campus viewed as our strengths and our weaknesses and where we should be going in the future. And so we started something, and again, this was before you got here, to create kind of a foundation for the plan, and we called it the Vision Project. And what we did was we basically asked everybody on campus and then a lot of people off campus, including our board of trustees and many alumni, the basic question of sort of who are we at Hofstra and what should we be? What do we want to be? What are our ambitions? We asked this question to everybody on campus. We did it through focus groups. To the extent that somebody couldn't be in a focus group, we did surveys of them. And we also did a lot of focus groups of, as I mentioned, folks off of campus, and came to a bunch of different ideas as to what the ambitions were of the faculty and the whole campus community. That led to something which, Charlie, you and I worked on together in the next year, which was a request for proposals from the faculty. And this was a more specific question that we asked of the faculty, which was, what are you interested in working on? What kinds of new scholarship or curriculum would you like to do? If you have some ideas, submit them as a proposal to us. And of course, you remember, how many proposals did we think we were going to get from the faculty? This was a totally new thing, right? We kind of made this up.
We had no idea. I think if we had 10 or 12, we would have claimed success.
We would have been very happy. So, Charlie, how many did we get?
78.
78 proposals with about 250 faculty participating in them, most of them in teams. Most of the proposals were from, more than one person per proposal. I just remember how excited we were, right? Because we suddenly realized, wow, there's a huge amount of ambition, academic ambition on the faculty. There's so much that they want to do. And then we had to figure out, how can we support this?
That's right. Lots of ideas.
Lots of ideas, lots of great ideas. And some of those ideas were things that didn't really need our support. And some of them we just said to the faculty, go back to your department or your school and go do it.
Exactly.
Right? Talk to your dean, and I think you'll be able to do some of this. But some of them, they needed support. And so we funded a bunch of these proposals, and many of them have already come to fruition, and it's been very, very exciting. And we went out for another round the following year and did a few more. So that sort of gave us the idea of what everyone was interested in on campus. And then we thought, we have to take all this information, right, and put it together. Right, and think about it. And we started with thinking about a mission statement and core values. And the senior leadership team kind of did the first rough draft of that. And we sent that around to a big faculty committee. We showed it to the deans. I think we talked about it with the board and the faculty leadership group and students.
That's right.
From that, we also developed core values. Again, we vetted them across the board. And once all that was put together, we created 4 committees, right? We identified these 4 goals that you've already talked about, right?
Right.
Interdisciplinary and new academic programs is one. Academically informed community engagement is another. Student success and organizational agility. And then we put together committees of faculty, right, and administrators to sort of flesh those out and give us their ideas of how to think about those 4 goals, each of them one goal.
And you gave them very aggressive but achievable timeline
we
of one
sure
semester.
Did. One semester. And you know what? Again, kind of like the RFPs, right? They took it up and they did it.
They did it.
It was amazing, and it was really an incredible effort. And from that, from the reports, which they then talked about publicly, right? We had public forums for them so that the campus could hear what each of these committees was thinking about. We just drafted the plan that, what did you say, was 13 pages?
They're just over 13 pages.
Single-spaced,
I think it might be space and a half. But
maybe space and a half. Yeah.
Most of it's appendices.
That's true. Fair enough. So we put that together. That was, I think, pretty much the late spring, summer of 2024.
It was.
And then had a kind of big reveal in September through the State of the University, which I already mentioned. So, Charlie, you are one of the main architects of this plan. And I think you once said that there are 4,000 or 5,000 universities in this country, and that to create a university that's truly unique is a pretty high bar. But to build one that is distinctive and has its own culture and ethos is something that can be done.
I think that's right, and that's the goal. This wasn't meant to be an intellectual exercise alone. It was a real effort to design a plan to ensure that Hofstra thrives over the next decade. And I'm convinced that by the year 2035, and hopefully sooner than that, Hofstra will be known for its distinctive interdisciplinary academic programs that engage with and support the communities that we serve.
I couldn't agree more with this. And I'll take a moment, since I've got the mic, to thank everyone involved in helping this plan come to life, because it really was hundreds of people. It was no small feat. So, Charlie, let me ask you now, as someone who was so involved, what's your biggest takeaway about Hofstra 100?
I think it would be that the plan is both aspirational and achievable. It clearly articulates, in very carefully chosen words, what the future of Hofstra can be and, in fact, needs to be. Susan, what's your biggest takeaway about Hofstra 100?
Well, I I go back to what you said about, making a university distinctive. I really think it's going to, particularly the first two goals about interdisciplinary work, truly interdisciplinary work across the board, where a student can come here and put together all different kinds of disciplines in order to really study what they want to study and the way they want to study and in the way that problems come to you in the world, right? They don't come to you in a discipline. They come to you as a big mess.
That's right.
And you've got to figure it out, and you need a lot of different ways of thinking in order to figure it out. And then the other thing I would say is that I think we really are leveraging the potential of Hofstra with this plan. We're playing to our strengths. And again, that is really the variety of academic programs that we've got here and the quality of the faculty and the quality of the students. And I think putting that all together is just really exciting, and I'm very excited about it.
Absolutely. Exciting and fun.
And fun. We have been having fun. So in the next 4 episodes of this podcast, we're going to do a deep dive into each of those 4 goals, and much more needs to be said about all of them. So what happens now? Let's just talk a little bit about that future, maybe the more immediate future. How do we stay on track with this plan and even know if we're staying on track?
I love those questions, and those are 2 questions that I give you a lot of credit for, Susan, because you ask those of us consistently. And so 4 different things come to mind quickly in terms of staying on track. First is we've asked each school and college to work on their strategic plans, to align them with and to support Hofstra 100. Those school plans will be shared at some point during the spring semester. We're also inculcating the plan and its goals into all of our meetings, our conversations, and our actions. We're asking the question, how does this decision or how does this action support the strategic plan and or align with our mission and core values? So it's through our vocabulary we're keeping these front of mind. Thirdly, we're collaboratively working on establishing key performance indicators, or KPIs, which are intended to both be quantitative and qualitative measures of our progress. We plan to collect and report out on these measures on an annual basis in a very public way, for example, on a website-based dashboard. And then lastly, as our listeners will hear in an upcoming episode with Jesse Webster, Hofstra's Chief Information Officer, we've established a standing committee on organizational agility, and that committee and its work will be fundamental to holding us accountable.
Yeah, and we talked about that the other day, didn't we, when Jesse Webster, the CIO, gave a presentation. And the agility is not really a 4th goal. It sort of undergirds the other 3 goals, right? If we're not agile, we're not going to be able to create these interdisciplinary programs or figure out ways to incorporate academics into our community engagement and vice versa, or even support students, right? Because they're all different.
Exactly.
We have to be very agile in how we support them. And I'll just say that the senior leadership, all the other vice presidents are doing this in their divisions too. Everybody from the leader of athletics to development and alumni relations to marketing and communications. Everybody has to be thinking about these 4 goals and what they're doing. Lucky for us, we have such a fantastic team. So it's all really very exciting. And of course, we're also sharing this via podcast, right?
That's right.
News stories, social media, and so forth. So we're getting it out there. Before we wrap up, is there anything else you want to share about Hofstra 100 and how we got here?
First, I'll encourage our listeners to read the plan.
That's
How about
a
that
good
as a
idea.
starting point?
Always a good idea.
So as I mentioned, it's a succinct 13 pages and available online at hofstra.edu/strategic plan. I'm very proud of the engaged process and the intentional steps that led to this plan's development. The plan genuinely and I think accurately reflects where Hofstra has been and importantly where we're headed. It honors our past while signaling with great clarity our collective intentions, and to go back to the active verbs of the mission statement, to cultivate and empower as we create the Hofstra of 2035. That's going to be centered on student learning, scholarly and creative endeavors that serve society and enrich all lives.
Well, I don't think I could have said that better myself, Charlie. I also think we can link the strategic plan in the show notes, so maybe they don't even have to go to the website. You think that's a good idea?
Fantastic. You are a much more experienced podcaster than am I.
Yeah, by about 10 minutes.
Exactly.
Anyway, well, thank you so much, Charlie, for joining me today. But our listeners haven't heard the last of us as a team. On the next campus conversation, I'll be back with Provost Charlie Riordan to go even deeper into the first goal of the strategic plan, interdisciplinary learning and new academic programs.
I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you, Charlie, for joining us, and we will see you then.
If you have questions, comments, or topic ideas for Hofstra's Campus Conversations, please email podcast@hofstra.edu. Hofstra University has produced and provides this podcast for general information only. It is created in collaboration with WRHU Studios.